Just an announcement before we start with the talk. Since so many people have asked, it's better with the teeth now. But I may have to go back for replacement of the temporary filling that's in there now. I think we'll be all right with our meeting time, but please use the time that is available in groups or in private meetings to take the meetings. If we have many open spots now, it may not be sufficient for everybody having their share of meetings in the end. This is day 3 of the April 95 7-day retreat in Springwater. This is the question. Should one have goals or shouldn't one have goals? Obviously, goals are needed to accomplish things. If we never had the goal of building a retreat center in the country, this building would not exist. Or if there wasn't the goal in mind of, at one point lodging in the mind, that maybe one can understand who one is or be free, enlightened, whatever formulation has been given to this. Whatever it is. If that goal didn't at some point lodge in the mind, maybe one wouldn't bother to sit down quietly, to come to talks, to attend meetings, and watch what is going on in one's life with greater interest and intensity. But basically, here, in being here, the importance is not to keep the goal going, to motivate goal-oriented behavior, to attain something, to achieve something, but to find out, for instance, what it is like when the goal comes up in the mind. In other words, to spaciously look at how we are functioning from moment to moment. Not this is right and this is wrong, be this way but not that way, become that and not be this, which is our habitual way of being. But to shed light on it in an encompassing way. I'll say a few more things about the idea of having to achieve something or having a goal, which is often mentioned as being so important, so necessary. Without that, we wouldn't do anything. But it can flip, and if one says to oneself, or if thought says, there's nothing to be attained, there's nothing to be achieved, it can be a very depressing statement. One person, I think I remember reported it yesterday in a group, getting very angry at the thought, well, there's nothing to do here, or nothing to accomplish, no purpose. So the way we formulate, or the way thought formulates things, has a profound effect on this organism. And the profound effect, which is either elation or stimulation or depression, that profound effect seems to lend truth and reality to the statements we make, as though what we are saying is true because of the way the body feels. So depressed, so elated. Therefore, what has just been said, it must be true. One person mentioned it, coming away from a recent retreat, feeling very good, very freed and energetic, and then it sort of flipped into a sense of unworthiness. The way of looking at oneself affecting a depressive state, and therefore believing that what we say about ourselves is true, we're not worthy. Or if we begin to feel better again, maybe we are worthy after all. Can that be lit up from the inside in a new transparency, revealing how the way we think, or the way thought runs, because there is no thinker. Don't believe in what I say. Find out if you believe there is a thinker. Find the thinker. What is said here comes from seeing directly. That there is a thinker is also more thought. So, as thought is running, so do we feel, so does the organism experience pleasurable, unpleasurable states. In observing closely, being more transparent to thoughts affecting body and body states affecting more thinking, one may notice that throughout the day this body-mind state is fed by anticipation, fed or starved. Anticipation of good things to happen gives constant boosts to the energies, which we call our body. And fearing things to happen deflates or causes all kinds of unpleasant, uncomfortable states to the point of panic, a disorientation, disorganization of orderly physical responses. All due to sometimes very quick flickers of thought, coming from memory usually, from knowledge acquired in the past, deposited in the brain, and throughout the body. So it's futile to say, I shouldn't be thinking about the future, I shouldn't remember the past. We're not saying that, even though this is how it is often interpreted. But here and there, can there be awareness how one thought about a pleasant future gives a rise, and one thought about being unworthy, rejected, unloved, unappreciated. Well, you watch what it causes. And to stick with it, not to jump to conclusions that the way we feel or what thought says is a reflection of the truth. That's the hardest thing. We're so used to taking it for granted that thought informs us truthfully about the way things are and the way we are and the way other people are. Because I know it, I experienced it, I remember it, says thought. And to leave it all open. Because now, here and there is a glimpse that the remembered is not the actual, and the actual moment of being, of interrelating, may be quite different from the way it was yesterday. If there's the flexibility to give that a chance. And that flexibility doesn't come easy, because holding on to rigid ideas, rigid structures of thinking, gives a strange sense of security. I say strange because it's not solid. It's very fragile. It needs to be constantly supported by more thought and defense of one's assumptions and thoughts. So to be suddenly faced with the possibility of being flexibly open to maybe that the way I believe and think and assume something about another person may not be true. It gives a queasy feeling. As we said earlier, the body responds faithfully to new thoughts and old thoughts. What do I have to hold on to? Not that that is all spelled out, it's so instantaneous. Feeling of insecurity, one's belief system, one's assumption system questioned, and therefore not deriving the customary security from it. Now, I want to be open, uncommitted to some fixed ideas about the other person and about myself. Because if the openness has a depth to it, not just the idea I ought to be open, that doesn't do much. But sort of based on having seen through the whole thought structure of myself and others, maybe just a glimpse at a time, a brief hint maybe, lends more depth to an openness. To face each other freshly, oneself. Maybe realizing there's no need to be tied to structures of thinking and assuming and imaging. Takes tremendous openness. Awareness of how habitual the structures are. And how we cling to them. It's not just that there are these thoughts and the habits of feeling one way or another depending on how we think about ourselves. But there's tremendous emotional, psychological attachment. To thinking about myself the way I'm used to. To holding on to hopes about myself. What will happen to me in the future? Or the opposite, holding on to negative imagery about being unworthy. Why this attachment to these ideas of ourselves and their continuity? Can we question that? First of all, discover that it is a fact. There's tremendous attachment to the way I think about myself and want to maintain myself in my own view and in the eyes of others. I want to maintain an image or many images. And the attachment to myself, my image story of myself. Before it can be questioned, it has to be seen to some extent. Glimpses at a time, hints at a time. And it is best seen, although we least want to see it, when we feel attacked, criticized, slighted, cut off by someone, lorded over by someone. Or the opposite, when we're flattered by someone. Someone pays us compliments. To watch the attachment. To being in a certain way and wanting to be seen and accepted and treated like that. And the fear, the anger, the upset and turmoil that ensues every time when this is denied. And to really wonder about the strength of the attachment with which goes the desire for continuity. In other words, the attachment to the image story of my life it's projected into the future, and there's a desire to keep it going and a fear of its ending. Now, as the talk goes on, is one just listening to the sense that the words make? Maybe our first step to understand it verbally, intellectually. It makes sense. It sounds reasonable or unreasonable. But more is needed than saying, yes, intellectually this makes sense, this is what's going on. One can listen to a talk in that way, or right now, or afterward, whenever. One can look directly or discover directly that, yes, this is really going on. Or maybe, no, I see it differently. And then to bring it to meetings. This is what is brought up time and time again by all of us, because it comes up time and time again. Why, if there was no fear a moment ago or yesterday, why does it come back so quickly, so insistently? Fear about what? About failing? About unworthiness, not being good enough, doing wrong. Or not living to old age. Fear of dying. Fear of losing. Why should it come up again if once it has been seen through and for that moment there is no fear, there's only the openness of wholeness, no sense of separation. of isolation, no sense of that. No thought about oneself. Not caught up in what I've called this network of meanness with all its memories and knowledge and conditionings and anticipations, imagery. For a moment, not caught up in that, and amazingly enough, at that moment, there is no fear. Because outside of that network, there is no fear. Fear resides in the network. It goes inevitably with it. I'm just picking out fear. There are other things, the whole thing that we suffer from, including suffering itself, resides in this network of meanness and its attachment, its addictiveness or addictedness to itself. One person said, I heard something about maybe being rejected for something. And immediately a deflation. At the idea of being rejected. Why is this so strong? The person also said, I don't want to hear from you that you appreciate me and that I'm all right. I don't want the support right now. I want to get to the bottom of this. Not replace the deflating image with an inflating image, which is what usually happens. It's also a habit to go for support, by which I'm not saying that support is never indicated. I'm not making such statements. One may draw those conclusions, but and the person also said, I know that state. It comes by itself of not attached to one's, not thinking about oneself, but spaciously, the peepers, the wind, the heartbeat and breath flowing. And in that, no need for deflation or inflation. Yet, why does the other come back? So quickly, so frequently, so insistently, so powerfully. If that's a powerful question and not just a sort of rhetorical exclamation, then there will already be interest and energy to watch. As entanglement is about to happen, or most of the time as it has already happened. I didn't realize how it came about, but here it is, entanglement. In deflated energies or fearful physical expressions, feelings. How clearly can one see for oneself? How clearly and directly that living in this network as we do, fear and inflation and deflation are inevitable. It comes with it. It comes with thinking about ourselves as me, with all the pleasures to which we're addicted and all the pains to which we're addicted. Of course, we don't want the pains, we want the pleasures to continue. But pleasures have a strange way of tilting into pain and vice versa. There's no fine line between pleasure and pain. And it comes in this way in which we live most of the time. Thinking about ourselves based on all the connections that this brain so efficiently establishes between experiences and the emotions, and then what reminds one of it triggers the same feelings, the same emotions, same fears. Networked through and through, this is what we are. And yet, at the same time, this amazing, one can say miraculous capacity to see the whole thing. Not from a space of network, without network, just simple, pure seeing. That as long as that functions, there is fear and inflation and deflation. And in seeing it, there is none of it. Just the wind and the heartbeat. Some faint cawing and moving. With no investment, no need to bring me in connection with that. Thought will do it very readily. Oh, I hear that. Oh, I don't hear that. I'm good at it. I'm poor at it. It's also an interesting phenomenon that if one hears this, or maybe glimpses this empty, no self-being, fear arises. Sometimes in a meeting or during a talk, people will report to me, I feel annoying fear here just at what you're saying as you're talking. About the inevitability of fear in this me network, and none of it when there's emptiness of seeing. And then the question comes, why am I afraid of this? Well, the question comes out of the network of wanting to continue with all that I hold dear and not so dear. We want to continue with the whole thing. Because some people don't. They take their lives. But thought comes so quickly, so imperceptibly. Making a new statement, so you're nothing. So you have no purpose, no goal. So all you are is emptiness. Some quicker than thinking. Thought from memory is quicker than the process of thinking. And immediately the body manifesting emotions again. Insecurity, queasiness, fear, deflation. And then reacting to that by trying to fight it. Or continue with storyline and getting deeper entrenched in emotionality about oneself and the world. How quickly can it be glimpsed again without doing something about it? You don't have to react. We've learned to react all the time. But in this case, is no need. It's a new way of seeing without needing to react, without needing to assess, to judge. No need to become something in the presence of being nobody. Because this is what our reaction usually amounts to. Something is seen, and in an immediate need, habitual need to bring ourselves in relationship with that through an opinion. A judgment, critical or approving. Needing to recreate ourselves or reestablish ourselves in the presence of what is just simply perceived or heard. I think this is not good, or this is like that, or it should or shouldn't. Is that in fact needing to assert ourselves or feel ourselves existing in the presence of what is, which doesn't need our existence? It happens at this moment to be part of it, but it doesn't need it. It goes on in unfathomable ways. I mean, here, all of life, the whole thing, unknowable, and yet also manifesting here, in oneself, here. And then thought, the eternal thinker and doer and creator, wants to establish itself in the presence of that through opinion, idea, criticism, spinning it on and on. Did I sound critical? I didn't mean to. It's just what happens, and it's observable. But it is not necessary to existence. It's sort of a little bit of a foam topping. So right now, where are we in all of this? No need to think on and on and on, trying to figure it out. If that's what happens, let it be seen and heard like the peeping and twittering and winding and breathing. We will end here for today.